Hello, welcome. Another one for Sandy the Landy. This one's not quite so upbeat, I'm afraid. Watch, let me have your feedback. It's not the end of the project, but a little bit more irritated than I might have been. Alas. And it probably won't come as a big surprise to you series lickers. This chassis's fucked. It's fucked big time. So what I've done, there was a small hole like this on the top of this rail. I cut it out bigger because I really want to see what was going on inside here, because you could see, well, I don't know how to describe it really, but someone's effectively welded a new spring mount onto the side here over 1mm steel. It looks thicker than 1mm because it's just bent over, and then wrapped 1mm steel over the top of the chassis rail and welded it around. So what they've basically done there is they've boxed the original chassis in with a repair section and left the original chassis to rot inside the rail. And I cut this section off as well to see how. Now, had it just been this piece at the back here, you buy a quarter section chassis which will cut off about here or thereabouts, and basically from here backwards it would replace all of this shonky crap around and about. And I thought, do you know what, I'm going to get away with that, I'll put a quarter chassis on it. But then I started digging a bit further forward. Let me get in here. Oops, that was a big old shake, sorry about that folks. I think even camera stabilisation would have struggled then. Right, so we got a couple of holes here. Let's get the fuel line out of the way. A couple of holes here, and I don't know what they are, but they match on both sides. They're not near a body mount, but they're not far off here. I don't know what they are, but I could have repaired those because the steel is pretty tough around and about, you know, where they are. Got this chunk here, which has rotted out on both sides, been patched that side. This side I was able to pick it off like I was picking a bogey out. And then we've got this stuff down here, so you can clearly see that the original chassis rail comes, let's put my torch on it, comes down, if I get my torch sorted out, comes down here, and then it's been placed over. Now this is the main reason I think why I've not noticed the extent of the bodgery on this thing. Unfortunately, you can see this chassis rail in here is absolutely full of shite, and there you can see that piece there, that is the original side of the chassis rail, and it's just rotted out completely. And most of the kind of the remnants is in the bottom of the chassis rail. Now what's effectively happened with this piece here is from up here somewhere all the way to underneath the seat box, the chassis has been wrapped. So the chassis has been wrapped with a repair section, and then the original chassis has just rotted out in the middle of it all. So we've got a real weak spot. If you in fact look along this line here, basically run parallel to the exhaust pipe, you can see how the chassis is really bowed and buckled in here, and then bulges here, and then goes back to its normal line here. Now I don't know if that's heat distortion, I don't know if that's where it's been bodged, I don't know if that's actually where the chassis started to distort, because it's just not strong enough. And it's primarily this chunk here that has written this chassis off for me, because by the time I've undone all this work, I'm going to need to get the body off, and by the time I got the body off and repaired this old chassis and tearing all the old patches off, because having seen this, the welding's good, no problem at all with the welding around the outside. I know there was a big lump of pigeon snot here, but overall the welding's good, but the steel is just too thin. You can see here, in fact this stuff might be thicker. This might be, yeah, it's just over 1mm, so it's probably about an 8, it's probably a 16 gauge, but at the back here, that plate there, that was 18 gauge, just too thin. Here, might be a bit thicker, I don't know. I don't like it. I could patch it up, I'm not gonna. And all the way down here, it's just, the more I look at it, the more shit it really is. Whoops, I'm just being attacked here by a tree. So yeah, that's the bad news on the chassis. The good news is, I guess, that chassis are available, and I've got the capabilities and the wherewithal to repair it. But all of this stuff here, it's not nice. In fact, if we go down a little bit, let me sit on top of the axle. No, I can't sit on top of the axle, it's oily. Right, let's look here. So what we've basically got, this line of weld here and this line of weld here went over the top there. You can see it hadn't penetrated that bit there at all. And I'll probably find I could bend some of this shaft off. Was all part of this outer chassis repair, which was over the top and down the other side, right, either side. So when I was looking underneath here at all of this shite, okay, there's a bit of pigeon snot there. I was always going to clean it up. What we basically got is this rib underneath the chassis, fore and aft. And one thing I don't understand here, let me know folks if you do. It's clearly had a rear crossmember put on. You can see the edge of the rear crossmember repair section. It's here, and I can see it's been welded up and over the top of the original chassis rail. Now that's not a problem. I don't have a problem with that. It's been welded on and it bolts up nicely to the back end of the car. So I can see that's been welded on. What I don't understand is, because there's no rust on the inside of this extension, why has this piece been put along the bottom here? It's been done both sides. It's like an angle line. This side here, you can see it's rotted out there because it's just been full of water or something. But this angle line on both sides, let's get the fuel line up, has been welded on. And I'm not entirely sure I understand why. Is this a strengthening rib? Just to allow more weight to be put in the back of the van? I don't know. You can see it's gone all the way along here. So there isn't actually that much rust underneath this, but it is a U section of steel that's been put on the bottom of the chassis rail. There may well be a hole under here on the original chassis rail, but certainly under this chunk here there's nothing. There's no hole at all. And I think this whole kind of method, and whoever did this is not the first person to do it, and certainly will not be the last person to do it. But kind of when you're patching a chassis up for an MOT, it's best to cut the rot out first of all before you start welding over the top. And you can see in here, you might be able to see in here, down here you can see that you've got the original side of the chassis rail, which is rotted out down near the bottom there, on the inside of the spring mounting. And then rather than welding that patch up and welding the spring mounting to the original chassis rail, no, we're just going to put this huge plate along the outside here. It was done to pass an MOT. I think when it was done, it was probably, oh, it's okay, it's a bodge. This shit over here probably was just seen as a bodge. It'll tide it over, another year. But I think what's happened now, and I don't have any real complaints about this. I bought this car dirt cheap, and the seller was pretty honest with me. But I think this chassis has got to the point where it's uneconomical to repair the existing chassis. I don't know if you agree or not. Let's have a quick look. If we look at this one, just going over the top of the axle down here. So we've got a big lump of steel that runs all the way up here, over the top, and then back down the other side. So when you look from the outside of the chassis rail, this all looks fresh steel. This doesn't look like it's had a problem. It doesn't look like it's been welded. Look on the top of it. It looks okay. Similar to this side. It's only because there was a big lump of pigeon snot there I thought I'm going to have a look. And when I started digging into it, I thought, oh, good grief. What the actual fuck? So, yeah, it's been repaired, but it's not been repaired very well. It's been repaired so it can pass another MOT. And I think this chassis has seen its last MOT. There's quite a lot of patches as well on top of these cross members. There's patches over there on that cross member that the tail end of the gearbox goes on. I know it's had front dumb irons put on. I looked inside the front dumb irons and they have been chopped off, a little bit like this area here. It's been chopped off clean and the repair's been put over the top of it. When I look inside here at where it was welded on, that's fine. So this original chassis section has been welded to the extension and then this has been put over the top, probably at a later date. Why? I don't know, probably just to do it on the quick side. And here we can see on this side the spring mount has been welded down both sides, and it's pretty solid, but it's not been welded along the top here because the floor didn't come out. This rail actually is not as bad as the other rail. Now, I expect if I was to cut all the shit off this rail and grind these welds back, it probably wouldn't look too bad. Here we've got an ancient patch. When I look on the inside of that one using the endoscope, you can see where the rot has been cut out. So originally when this thing's been patched, it had been patched and the rot had been cut out, and then I think it got to a stage in its life where it was worth less than the shirt on the owner's back. And so because of that, the repairs have become more and more just get it through the MOT. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not going to judge. I don't judge. But now, I mean, the quality of all this stuff up here. I mean, I did attack this with a jemmy, and it wasn't going anywhere. Unlike that one, which just sort of fell off, and you can see my pigeon snot down there, which again I was going to tidy up. Oh, fuck's sake! Glad I didn't waste all the fucking grinding discs and shit. Oh, there's another patch down there that I was able to just pull off. Didn't put up any real resistance at all. And again, that was just over, so that patch has been put over a tiny hole at the bottom edge of the chassis rail. So yeah, I'm gabbling on. I'm going on and on and on about this thing. It's an X chassis. Oops. See if we can get out of this thing now. It is an X chassis. Hopefully you can see me. I think you can see me. Right, so where do I go from here? Well, there's three options. Because I'm not even going to count the bodging it any further. I'm not going to continue just to patch rusty chassis rails, and this is bad. Rusty chassis rails, patch them over with thin steel and continue to bodge it. The door's coming back to attack me. So that is, it's not an option as far as I'm concerned. The second thing is, I sell it as it is, as a going concern. There's a lot of good things going for it. Alas, I don't think I'm going to get anywhere near a return on my investment thus far on this car. So realistically, I don't think that's an option either. I can't just pass it straight on. We've got breaking it for parts option. I would certainly see a return on my investment if I was to sell it in lumps, bite-sized chunks. But I don't want to do that. I think the car, even though the chassis is ruined, I think the rest of the car is actually in quite good shape. So it leaves me with one option. Now, had it not been for those chassis rails up near the seat, the option would have been a rear quarter chassis, which would have included all the spring mounts and everything, and that would have been cost effective. I could have done that. But it's when I cut into the chassis rail behind the seats that I just realised that this thing is utterly fucked. And really, if I was to cut that out and weld it back together, I'd need the body off it. And if I'm taking the body off it, what am I fucking around doing? Why don't I just get a new chassis for it? So the project's currently on hold. New chassis will be the route forwards. I don't really want to break it for bits. Too many series Land Rovers have been broken for bits. There's not that many vans left. Certainly not that haven't had windows cut in the sides. I think it's a really usable vehicle when it's all done. So for that reason, I kind of want to see it saved. I think a galv chassis would see it saved. But then it's just weighing up the economics of the project. As far as my capabilities and my ability to put a chassis on this thing, piece of piss. Well, it's not a piece of piss, it's a really heavy duty job, but it's something I can do. It's definitely something I could do. As far as the cost is concerned, in parts, £3,000. I had to go and get my hat. It's too bright, the sun's just up here, and it was shining in my face, making me squint. So I put my hat hard on. Right, so where were we? Economies of this project. If I was doing it for me, and I wanted to put a chassis on there, the first thing I'd be looking around at is there another car that's got a galv chassis on, and if so, how much is it? Well, there's not so many vans, 109 vans, but there are things like station wagons and so forth. And certainly short wheelbases, there's a world of short wheelbase cars that have had chassis done on them. They ain't that cheap actually. But sorry, they offer really good value. So if I'm looking then at £3,000 worth of parts plus, I don't know, a fair few numbers of hours, I'll toss it up. I shall do this, but it's just not going to happen immediately. I need to get the funding in place for this project before the chassis happens, which is why it's back in the field again. I'll get on with Bob. But realistically, when you're faced with a task of this kind of magnitude, you've got the finishing line in sight, and then you fall backwards down a well. As far as your project costs, timescales, and so forth are concerned. This thing was, I was going to book this in for an MOT next week. Fucking thing. Right. So yeah, I think from my perspective now, I've costed up what I need to do to this car in order to re-chassis it. I haven't got timelines on that yet because I don't know what the timescales are around acquiring a chassis. I should contact Richards and find out. There's Richards, there's Marslands, there's a few companies out there that make chassis. And if I'm going to do one, I'll do it galv. If I'm going to do it galv, I might be inclined to paint a chassis black, but then no one can see it's galv, you see. So do you leave it galv finish, or do you? And all these considerations need to be thought through. I need to weigh up what's good about the car. That's important. So when you're looking at a project like this, you need to weigh up, okay, why am I doing this? Because if everything else was broken on the car, it would be in parts by now already. I wouldn't even got to the stage. But I know that the running gear is good, I know that the electrics are good, I know that the interior is complete, I know the body's good, it's straight, although it needs a pair of doors. They're not the best. The driver's door especially is it's coming away from its frame. It's serviceable, but if I'm going to put a galv chassis on this, then we're going to look at selling it, as my dad would be looking at selling this because he'll be financing it, I guess. Then you don't want to be doing it half-assed, do you? When I say half-assed, maybe restoration isn't the kind of the way forwards. I'll be keen to find out from you what you think. Should this car be repainted? If it's going to be repainted, am I going back to the marine blue? Should I go back to the minute it left the factory in 1980, but with the galv chassis on it, and a nice new interior from Exmoor Trim, and a tidied up and detailed engine bay, painted inside and out, new tyres, painted wheels, painted axles. The axles I know are good, they just want clean and paint. Rebuilt prop shafts, the list goes on and on and on. If you're not careful, you end up spending, as I did with the white Range Rover. So on the 1972 Range Rover, where I spent money that perhaps I probably could have saved money was really around painting the car in chunks, in bits, putting brand spanking new body panels on when old panels were serviceable. There was a lot of people talking my money out of my wallet, I tell you, when I was going through that project. An incredible amount of effort went into finding the exact right fittings for it. All completely useless. These are all good lessons to learn. You guys can learn these lessons from me. You can learn them from my mistakes, my expense, out of my wallet. The other thing I did with that Range Rover, as much as I loved it, I kind of built it for me because, I wanted the vinyl floor coverings. I wanted the Kit Kat seats. And that costs a shitload of money. And people look at these things and think, well, where's the bloody Wilton carpet and the leather seats? And the kick-ass stereo sound system. They don't seem to realise that early Range Rovers were a little bit like, series Land Rovers, but on steroids. So, yeah, project's not dead and buried. I'm less keen to break it for parts. I think that there is value in putting a galv chassis on it. My challenge would be to do it in a weekend. Do you reckon I can do it? Not this weekend. So my challenge would be to do it as quickly and efficiently as possible and get the car turned around. Painting is going to be a ball's ache because I'm going to have to take the entire body frame apart and clean all of the internal elements up, because the thing's been brush painted in here. Brush painted in the olive green colour. And then if you paint it, then the galv here looks alright, but you know, you've got rust on the corner. So you can get cold galv, and you spray the cold galv over the new galv, and then you think, oh, actually the cold galv looks too clinical, and you end up losing. So yeah, it's a tricky one, this one. I do need to think about it and plan it through and work out where it's going to go to. I don't want it to look like a brand spanking new Land Rover, but I think it could be made to look very presentable, and with a galv chassis it will be very usable too. Got comments? Let me know. If you want to buy it, let me know. If you want to commission me to, you know, build your Series 3 Land Rover 109 van to your specification, let me know. I'm sure we can come to an arrangement via my business. At the moment this has been a personal project because my dad owns it and I've just been working on it while I'm marooned down here. Phone ring, ding ding. But yeah, we could transfer it, we could draw up a contract for it being built up to your individual specification. More or less put a fixed price around it. Ooh, there's a nice footrest there for that, that'll do. So yeah, it's not the end of it. It's got, you know, good mechanicals, good interior, it's got, you know, new exhaust, new brakes, new suspension, it's had new springs on the back. Body's straight, it's clean, it's complete. It's just well used for a 40-year-old van with a fucked chassis that's been in the sea a fair amount. I don't think it's been Coast Guard. Coast Guard paint their cars a much darker blue, as do Royal Navy, so I don't think it's been. And also it wouldn't, the registration wouldn't match the year of manufacture, and this thing was manufactured 1980 and it's got a 1980 reg plate on it as well, so it's not been armed forces. It's been nothing exciting in its life. It's been somewhere, I don't know where though. So yeah, that's really, you know, fucking Lady Fate farts in my face. I suppose it's a good job really I pulled this floor out and found all this shit really, because like I say, underneath, because the chassis rails have been wrapped, it's only this chunk here at the back on the passenger side that I thought was my real concern about this chassis, and half of that seems to just been patches welded over half decent steel, and I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why now, because it's been fucked up and bodged. Yes. Anyway, it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. Right, but the weather is glorious, and you know, end of July I think is my target really for getting this thing turned around, and we are third week in June. So I reckon that if I can get this thing re-chassied but not do the paintwork, I don't know. I think the thing for me is that, you know, I've not worked for the last 3.5 months. This isn't a sob story, don't. I've done odds and sods, and there's been little bits and bobs kicking around, but because, you know, social distancing and all that sort of stuff, it's been difficult for me to pick up new projects, new project work. So this is why I've been working on my own stuff, or my dad's stuff. But ultimately now these need to be kind of moved on, so Bob's going to have to be sold. This is going to have to be sold, and that's really to pay for food to go on the table. And it's, like I said, this is not a I need money call here, because the finances are in good order, but I just need to make sure they remain in good order, which is why I've been spending my time on projects like this. But I am disappointed I didn't spot the issues with the chassis sooner. When I went underneath it, looking at the outside edges of the rails, they don't look too bad. When I was on the inside edges of the rails, you could see where it's been patched. It's only when you start digging through the patches that you realise the extent of the bodgery. And we've all bodged things over the years. I've never bodged anything as far as the business is concerned, but you know, back in my very early days, I've bodged cars. I've done MOT fixes. I'll do a beer and bollocks section of all my MOT bodges that I've done over the years. I've never knowingly sold a wreck. With the chassis in the way it is now, there's no way could I present this for an MOT. I could dress it up and make it look smart again, but it'd still be a compromised chassis. And I think that's daft. I think you're going to do the car justice if it's going to survive more than 2 years, at which point the chassis kind of breaks its back, and you know. So it needs fixing. It deserves fixing. I mean, the good news, I guess, is once I get the chassis off it, I will be able to cut all these outriggers and mounts and so forth that have been put on. Cut them all off and lob them in the bin for in the parts bin for next time I need to do something. But anyway, that's it. Please subscribe if you like this series. I know lots of you have. Thank you very much. Give me an old thumbs up. Give me a thumbs down if you have to. Can't please all the people all the time. If you've got comments on this video, please put them below, or you can drop me an email, churchhouseclassics, it's all one word, @gmail.com. And yeah, there'll be a lot more. This van is going to continue. I will continue the series on this van, but I just need to get finances in order to actually move it forwards to its next stage with the new chassis. Bob is probably going to be an easier project, certainly a cheaper project for me initially in the short run to move forwards a significant step. I've already got an engine that the machining work has been done on and so forth. So this just has to wait in the aisles until I'm ready, until such point as I've got the funds in place to purchase the chassis and actually get on with it and do it. Thanks for watching.